Hello and welcome to the Aquarium Dilemmas podcast. I'm your host, ScienceGal Aquatics. I'm Kerri, and this is my co-host,
Jesse, and welcome to another exciting dilemma.
Yes, welcome. I'm excited that you're listening, so thank you. And today's, it might be a little bit different of a topic, but I think it's very important to discuss.
It is. It's a very important topic. For me, as the new fish keeper, being kind of pulled into it, what can I add to my tank? How many fish at once? Why? Is it okay? Is it good? Is it bad?
Well, it's something I honestly, because I did start out so young in fish keeping, it's something that I didn't really think about. Me and my dad and my brother and sister, we would go to the fish store and we'd just pick out whatever fish we liked. And then we'd come home and we would put them in the tank. And sometimes it would be one, sometimes it would be several at a time. And I didn't really see anything wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with it either if you do understand what's going on in your tank and some of the things you can run into. The better you understand that, I feel like you'll have better luck adding more at a time. If that maybe makes sense, hopefully.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. And to not add fish immediately to the tank, which check out one of our other episodes about how you add fish to your tank as far as acclimating them.
Yeah, because you can totally, again, it comes down to just understanding your nitrogen cycle. In the past, we have talked about we don't recommend you adding fish the first day, especially if you don't understand the nitrogen cycle. But again, if you do understand it, then you know how to break the rules so you can add fish the same day. You can do anything you want, but it's better to understand the rules so you know how to break them.
So to set the premise of this whole dilemma, we already have a tank. It's cycled. It's good to go. I've acclimated some fish. Through the bags in there, I've acclimated some fish. All that we went through in other episodes. If you'd like to tune in, check those out.
Yeah, we always invite you to check out the past episodes.
But, okay, so we'll set the premise right there. That I've got a tank. I've cycled my tank. I've got some fish from the fish store. Bags are in the tank, getting temperature acclimated. But how many fish? Is it okay just to add hundreds? 2, 3? What should I do? I know what I would do now, but I want to hear from your side.
Well, of course, because you always ask me these random questions. I think, again, it just comes down to knowing your nitrogen cycle. You can have a tank that's well established, which I very much recommend if you're adding one fish or a school of fish at a time. But it just comes down to knowing if your nitrogen cycle, your beneficial bacteria, can handle the amount of fish that you're adding. If you have a well-established tank with a community that is been in there for a while and you have your tanks been balanced for a while, and you go and you fall in love with these beautiful fish at the fish store, and let's say you buy a trio, just because your tank's balanced with the community that you have doesn't mean that your tank's going to be balanced if you add, especially if it's a larger, very high bio load of a fish, there's going to be a time gap that your nitrogen cycle, that beneficial bacteria, is going to need some time to catch up with the additional waste. You're probably, if you're like me, going to add a little bit of extra food to the tank. So if your food doesn't get immediately eaten up and it settles at the bottom of your tank, even though you have new fish, it doesn't guarantee they're going to eat the additional food.
Yep.
There's going to be some time where I always recommend going to the fish store and falling in love with another fish, but you have to know that it's dependent on your bacteria and your filtration. And there's some important factors that go into it. The size of the fish, those type of things.
Size of your tank.
Yes, the size of your tank. And you always hear about, well, I wouldn't say you always hear, but the advice that I've been given in the past that I think it is true to an extent that it works just enough that I can see the reason, but 1 inch per gallon type of thing. And I mean, if you're dealing with live bears or something like that, sure. But I wouldn't rely on that rule for every single circumstance. It really just comes down to the things you can't see in your tank.
Oh, absolutely.
And having a balanced tank it's relatively difficult, even if you know what you're doing. And if you're a beginner and you have no plants, you don't have very many things in your tank that's working for you, adding even like a handful of guppies to your tank can cause some issues.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you think?
Well, I think it's a balancing act, like trying to ride a unicycle uphill in the rain. Is what I think about a tank. Mm-hmm. And I like to generalize everything.
You do. And it gets you in trouble.
Well, as far as a new fish keeper, and what I think my common denominator has always been like a 20 long or a standard 55, because that's what we have the most of, and we use the most of. So I'm very comfortable with that scenario.
Yes, but even in saying, I believe you, yes, but adding fish to a tank, every tank is so drastically different. Even if you set up 2 tanks exactly the same, they're going to be different.
Oh, 100%.
And you can go to the fish store once a month, like clockwork, and you get, I don't know, 5 new guppies every month, and you put them in your tank. One tank might be totally okay, and you don't have a single problem, even with everything. There's so many factors and variations. And then the other one, you might have a little bit of an algae or a little bit of a bacteria bloom in it. Or you might have a little bit more algae develop or something just from the extra weight, just the additional fish. Now, and you might have it one time. You might have it every time. It's so different per tank. And each fish is so different. One time you might get a cichlid. Another time you might get a pleco. Another time you might get a couple neon. And each one of those fish have different bioloads. So if you add a couple plecos, it's going to have a lot more waste than a couple guppies. It's just so drastically dependent. And it's up to you knowing your tank, knowing your parameters of all of what your tank can handle. And maybe you want to try it. Let's say I fall in love with these tetra and I want a school of tetra. And if I add them all at once, and I know that I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more maintenance, a little bit more water changes, because I know myself well enough that I'm going to overfeed a little bit. So if I know that I do the proper thing and test my water, I know that it's, 30 parts per million, whereas before I added them, it was 20 parts per million. So I know I'm going to have to do a little bit extra maintenance. So yes, it worked. I probably did add too many, but because I know I need to do more maintenance to make it up, and I can't exclusively rely on that bacteria in my live plants to do all of the work. But I know if I'm going to add a bunch of fish, I'm going to have to up my maintenance.
Oh, yes. It starts from ground zero as far as what size tank and what are we putting in it. We generally deal in live bears. We've dealt in other stuff as well. Not as knowledgeable on some of the other fish.
Mainly cichlids. It's mainly cichlids. I don't know.
And the cichlids, those certain ones, you're supposed to cram a bunch of them in the tank just to cut down aggression.
Well, I wouldn't say you're supposed
Not cram, but overload the tank to combat aggression?
Yeah, and again, I don't know. Each tank is so dependent. You can, and again, I don't know cichlids. I know, yes, it's kind of one of those rules that you hear. You keep them a little bit more overstocked to keep the aggression down. But if you have a 75-gallon cichlid tank, you're probably doing a lot of water changes. I'm just assuming. But I know that I can get by with adding more live bears to a heavily planted tank than, let's say, I want to add a goldfish. Even a goldfish to a 75-gallon tank.
That's a massive
It's going to have
bio
a lot of bio. You're going to have to do a lot of maintenance to keep that up. And I just know from myself, I'm going to add more food to the tank. So I'm going to have to do more water changes just because of the waste. And your filtration, if you have a bunch of filtration, you have a couple sponge filters or a hang on the back that I like to put a lot of extra media in there, a lot of surface area for that beneficial bacteria. And again, the live plants, it's working for you to help cycle some of that ammonia and the nitrites out of it's fertilizer for them, for the live plants. But still, you're going to have to do maintenance. You can't exclusively always rely on live plants and bottom feeders to do your maintenance.
Maintenance is something you have to do with any pet. It doesn't matter if you got a dog, cat, whatever. Fish tank's the same. You're going to have to do maintenance. Maintenance in a fish tank is just different because we're going to take some water out and we might even gravel vac, do something like that. And then we're going to put some more water back in. And when we put that water back in, we're trying to add more minerals.
Yeah, it's very beneficial. It's not only, water changes don't only help by getting the waste out of the water. It helps by, like you said, remineralizing the water, giving it some extra stuff, some minerals that your live plants need.
Well, your plants need, and your fish need them as well.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's what, I mean, all that water is running through their gills and through the membrane, and they are absorbing certain amounts of that they need to be healthy.
Yeah. And if you have a heavily planted tank with a well-established, peaceful community of fish that's been in there for a while, you're going to be able to probably get by with adding, especially if they're smaller, tetra, live bears, things like that, shrimp. Something, you're going to get by with being able to add more because you have a well-established bacteria and they don't have as much bioload that's going. It just comes down to the bioload and the waste. If you're adding a bunch of fish to your tank, you're adding a lot of fish waste and you're probably going to be introducing more food. So you're going to have to build up that bacteria and do some water changes. But it also comes down to aggression. Do all of those fish, when I would go to the fish store when I was a kid, I would pick up such random selection. I might pick up, no joke, 4 or 5 fish. One might be an angelfish, the other one was a goldfish, the other one was a gourami, and then I'd have like 10 neon tetras. And did it work sometimes? Yes, it did. But did other times, did it work? No, not so much. So it comes down to, sometimes, like, I've had puffer tanks, and I could get by with having 3 or 4, like, pea puffers, or it was the figure 8 puffers in a 40-gallon breeder, but they're territorial, so you might be able to get by with having more puffers when they're the freshwater type, the pea puffers, the smaller ones, but you got to make sure that you have enough room so they can each have their own space. Or if you're I'd go to the store and get like an angelfish, they might be aggressive to something else. So you have to know that just because you like them, they might not all get along. So you can get by with adding more of them to your well-established, heavily planted tank, but that doesn't mean they're all going to get along. And you also need to realize that they do need swimming room. You can't overload your 20-gallon even with guppies, that they don't have any swimming room. There's a point where you got to make sure that they have some space.
Oh, yeah.
And I love heavily stocked just a huge population of guppies in a heavily planted, like, I don't know, 55-gallon tank. It's beautiful. But you have to be aware that they need space. You can't overload. You can't go to the fish store and get every fish they have because you like them and put them in a 10-gallon tank. Just because they fit doesn't mean they need to be there, type of thing. So.
Well, and you have the thought of also you have like certain tetra and stuff. You have that what they consider schooling or shoaling type fish that all kind of try to stay together.
Yeah, so you need to have a small group. Like the white cloud minnows, I think, do better in a small group. The rosy red minnows we have. What's another one? Some of the tetras, like you said, they do best in a group. So if you're going to add a group of them, you need to realize that you can't get under a handful. You need 6 to 10 of them, let's say. So you have to be aware that maybe if it's a brand new tank, do your research and be like, okay, I need this to be a well-established tank, but instead of adding 3, I need to add 10. So you might give it a little bit extra time or maybe you didn't think about adding live plants and maybe, so some fish need a group. You need to add more of them for them to thrive. They do best in a group environment, but you have to be aware of that you're putting that many fish in a fish tank and you need to do water changes, have bacteria.
Yep.
Don't overfeed just because they're so cute and they want all the little tiny food. Don't do that. Like, if you're adding a bunch of new fish to your tank, start off with the same amount of food maybe that you've been feeding, just a pinch, and just add a few more grains to it. And if they're still hungry, add just a tiny bit more. Don't just throw all the food in there just because you added new fish. Just
and especially with when you're dealing with the live bears or the smaller fish. The nano fish, so to speak, there is so much in your tank that's microorganisms that you can't even see that are actually those fish are feeding on.
Yeah, there's
just
so much.
Just a little tip for everybody out there listening that, I mean, it could be from on your substrate, your rocks, whatever, and even on your live plants. You'll see them kind of not necessarily, I wouldn't say eating your plants and nipping your plants. They're actually trying to feed on the algae and the stuff that's trying to grow on your plants.
Yeah.
As part of that nature's normal cycle of balancing your tank.
Yeah. There's some fish that absolutely need a little bit of algae in the water. I feel like they do better. And there's some that's outside, just being outside, they're fit the food out there, but I think that if I do keep larger populations of fish outside in the tubs because they do have more of that live food and it's just a natural occurring thing that they eat up and they just grow so well. So I do naturally keep the populations of the fish, especially like the rice fish, the rosy red minnows, the white clouds. I have more of them and a water volume than I have with the fish inside because of all the natural things helping me out there that can, like the food, the natural foods. But also, if you are adding a bunch of, even if you're not adding a bunch of fish to your tank, maybe it's just one. You do have to keep in mind where they're coming from. And I have made the mistake in the past where I was like, I don't know how to describe this. Oh, they're my friend. I know their water. They're okay. I don't need to quarantine. And sometimes, again, it worked out great. Or I'd go to the fish store and be like, I'm getting them from this store. I don't care what they are. They're going immediately into quarantine. And I was kind of a snot about it. I'm not going to lie. But if you go to the fish store, no matter what, I would recommend putting them in some quarantine a little bit. And if you have to add them, maybe you feel more comfortable. Let's say you quarantine your fish for 2 weeks and I'm going to add them one at a time. One Sunday, one Monday, one Tuesday, one blah, blah, blah. And you could do it that way. Or maybe just add them all at once. Just plop and drop them all in there. You're going to do your water changes. But know that if you're introducing a bunch of fish from especially, again, it doesn't matter whether you know them or not. Quarantine them. because they might get your old fish sick. So it worked out. They all got along. I introduced 10 new fish to my tank and they got along. There was no aggression and I loved them to death. for the 1 week I got to enjoy them because I introduced them and they got all of my other fish sick. So now I have no fish. So be aware that if you fall in love, because I'm guilty of impulse buying. And I don't recommend impulse buying. Don't impulse buy. But no, I'm a hypocrite in the fact that I do impulse buy fish. Okay.
Well, at least this is a very truthful podcast. You are airing out some dirty laundry here, so to speak.
Put them in quarantine for as long as you feel comfortable. Some people say a week. Some people do a month. It's whatever works best for you. And if it's a school of fish and they all looked good after the time, you can put them in there, put them in the community tank that you want, or maybe you got something else and it's one at a time. It's however, just, I recommend quarantining so you don't fall in love with your new fish and then lose all your other fish. And I'm not saying that's going to happen if you don't quarantine, but it's the one time. It's always the one time that you're like, oh, I should have done that because now all my fish have ick or something like that. So I guess just kind of coming down to it is balancing your aquarium is, whether you're experienced or not, it's kind of a hard thing to do. Not in the sense that you have to sit there and like study things, but it's maybe one day you overfed, or maybe one day you left the light on too long or something. Just, it's such a fine balance that has so many variables and factors that when you finally get that crystal clear tank with your community of beautiful fish, and you always have algae, but you don't have like the tons of hair algae everywhere. It's just, you found that balance and it looks really good.
And then you add more fish.
And then you can add, just know you can totally get by with adding. There's not a magical number. Like, you can't go to Google and be like, how many guppy fish should I add to my 20 long? I have 5 plants and 2 years worth of substrate in there. Like, it's not, I guess never say never, but just know that you can always do what you want. Just know the reasons why what's going on. So you know that if I have a good established bacteria, and again, like, some fish do well at the top. Some are bottom feeders. So let's say I want to get a whole bunch of shrimp and I want to add, 15 cherry shrimp to my tank. I know that they're not going to be aggressive to my guppies. They're not. So they're going to get along. There's no aggression. They're going to help me with they're always picking on things.
They're going to help with filtration and waste.
They're not going to increase the bio load of the tank to an extreme numbers over a pleco. So if I'm going to be a little bit more lazy on my water changes, maybe I should try some Neocaridina shrimp. That's, when I say shrimp, I will always forever mean Neos. Neocaridina shrimp, because I don't have the water for the other ones. So just, you're going to have excess waste. You're going to have probably, more than likely, more food. You're going to have some more tank maintenance that you're going to have to deal with. Take into the swimming space of the tank. If you have a really elaborate castle decoration and it takes up 1/3 of the tank.
Yeah, you're cutting down on that water volume.
You might have a 55-gallon tank, but you have 4 inches of substrate and a 3-foot battleship at the bottom of, so take in the swimming space. And maybe if you have a betta, get some, they might nip a little bit at some baby shrimplets here and there, but all that in and of itself depends on your betta's personality. But if you want to get some new additions, just try to get something that's not going to interfere, cross paths with each other too much.
Well, and I like the point you brought up just a little bit ago to extend that, is the bio load of the fish. It doesn't matter if it's a smaller fish. You hit on plecos. Plecos is probably the big one for me.
And you like plecos.
As far as your bristle nose, A lot of them are super little. They stay little.
Some of them are, and some of them are ginormous.
Well, it depends on the L numbers, and there's
it depends on
there's hundreds
the plecostomus.
There's hundreds and hundreds of varieties. But of all the ones we've kept a lot of the smaller varieties, and we do have one of the normal plecostomus. However, that even though it's a little bitty pleco, that little bitty pleco makes a lot of waste.
Yeah, it does.
There is certain fish, no matter size, they do just generally, and you hit on it earlier, a goldfish. You can buy a goldfish from any place, and they're little bitty, but they make an awful lot of waste.
Yeah. Their food literally pretty much goes right through them, and they're always begging.
Yeah.
So I guess I keep repeating myself, and it's probably really annoying to hear at this point, but just know that the nitrogen cycle, the beneficial bacteria, the things, the whole world that you don't see, that microscopic life that's in your tank is really important, and it really, something you can't see kind of really dictates how many fish you can add at a time. And it might work that you can add 20 guppies to a 20 long tank. It probably would. Probably work out great, but there's just going to be a little bit of lapse in time that bacteria needs to replicate to even keep up with the smallest of fish. And you might not have a problem, you might not have any issues, and someone else might do it and might have a huge a bacteria bloom. It really just depends. But know that bacteria, your filtration, if you have 2 sponge filters or you have a hang on the back that you add more biomedia to, it's increasing that surface area so that bacteria can latch on, and it's helping you. It's that biological filtration's helping you. The plants is going to help use that waste as fertilizer. It's going to feed on it, but there's a point if you have a really heavily stocked, like my community guppy fish tank that has a lot of guppies in it, there's still a point that if I don't do maintenance, I can't rely exclusively on those plants. There's a point when it's so stocked that you have to know where your ammonia levels are. Well, you can stock a tank. You can go to the fish store and get every fish and you put them in there, they all get along, it works out great. But if your ammonia level's really high, they're going to get sick. So no, you're either going to have to know your water parameters. If you're going to have a heavily stocked tank, test your water and know what your nitrate, your nitrite, your ammonia levels are, so you know that you need to do a water change. Because there's a point where your nitrites, the only way that those can come out, your nitrates, is going to, you have to do a water change to get them out. You just do. That NO3, you have to take it out. Yeah. There's a point. So your plants will feed on it, and that's what they love. Mm-hmm. But they can only take so much of it. You have to water change it out. It is you're otherwise you might get some more hair algae going on to combat that. So just know that it comes down to the things you can't see, that world that's so important. You have to keep a balanced tank if you don't want to have just numerous different issues. And not all of them are fatal. I mean, an algae bloom's not necessarily fatal. And a bacteria bloom usually isn't either. But just know if you have an overstocked tank, that might be an issue you run into because your bacteria can't keep up. And something's going to take advantage, and it's going to get unbalanced. And just because you have a balanced tank, if you introduced one extra fish, if it's a big enough fish with a high enough bioload, it's going to make your tank unbalanced then. Then you're going to have to do a water change to make it balanced. And there's just enough truth to some of those myths out there that you can easily believe them. Don't go into the mindset that 1 inch per gallon. It might work. Like my guppy tanks, it works. But my silver arowana, that does not work. So and the silver arowana really is not that big of
a bio load from him. But the problem is the size of the fish and the aggression of the fish. You cannot have, you have to have a massive water volume for him.
Yeah.
A massive water volume for him, even though his bio load is low and he doesn't need any tank mates. He can stand alone. So you have to know your fish and what you're doing with said fish.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there's some fun if you know the rules to break them. You could have some fun, but just know the rules. Know the foundation of why some of the things, you know, it's mainly the nitrogen cycle, filtration. You're introducing a lot more waste. And just kind of keep that in mind. Because it's fun going to the fish store and coming home with a lot of different fish. Especially ones you haven't kept before. But just know it really just depends on that microscopic life that you just don't see. Plays a lot into it.
Oh, so. Yeah. My top 3 rules would be the size of your tank.
Yes.
And know the bio load of the fish you're introducing. Yeah. It might be a small fish. It might be that one little pleco, but that one little pleco can make an awful lot of waste. Yeah. So know the bio load of your fish, of what you're putting in there, and that will help immensely.
Yeah.
And then you can judge by that how planted your tank is, how much substrate you got. But you got an idea then starting out.
Yeah.
Or because if I'm putting 2 goldfish in there, you know those 2 goldfish are going to go crazy on making some waste.
Yeah, pretty much. I always like the 10-gallon and the 20 longs, but you can have a lot more fun with a 75 or a 90. So if you want to have more fish, just get a bigger tank or get another tank. I recommend that. It's fun. But I hope this gives you something to think about. I hope we've help just a little bit, and always recommend going over to YouTube and checking out ScienceGal Aquatics. I appreciate you listening, and hopefully we helped you. So thank you so much.
Stay tuned in for another wonderful dilemma. Yes. We will be discussing all kinds of craziness like we always do.
Yeah, you never know. But that's the fun. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.